Hello, welcome to Leadership Live with Anton Gunn, and I'm so excited to be with you today. Today, we're talking about burnout. We are going to talk and have a conversation about burnout. More specifically, why are you burned out? What is driving your burnout? And most importantly, what you can do about it. Now, in order to set this up, I want you to understand something. As a keynote speaker, I have a process that I go through with every client organization before I step on stage in front of them. That process includes doing at least a 30 to 45-minute conversation with the leadership team about the event. We talk about the challenges in the organization. We talk about what the workforce needs. We talk about what the leaders need. We talk about their biggest successes. We talk about their biggest failures. We talk about the organization. And so as a part of that process, I build a rapport with the leaders in that organization, particularly the leader who is planning the event. And sometimes those conversations become long one-on-one personal conversations about that leader and the challenges that leader is facing. And what I mean the challenges, I'm hearing from leaders that they are burned out, that they're putting on this event to help the workforce or to help the broader step of leaders in the organization, but they personally are struggling. They personally are having challenges every day in the workplace. They're drained, they're disengaged, and they're doubting whether they're going to have a future in the organization. They say things like, I don't know much longer I can stay. I don't know if I can continue to put up with this. I don't know if I can continue to go on in this kind of environment. Now, when they say environment, here's what I want you to understand. They're talking about an environment where they have a lot of responsibility, but not a lot of resources. They are in an environment where they're fully in the loop on everything that's going on, but they have very little power to change what's going on. They literally feel powerless. Could you imagine being in a position where you're in every meeting, you hear about all of the good things, all of the challenges, all of the changes that are happening, all of the uncertainty, you know everything that's going on. But yet, when it comes time to implement something to change it, you don't have the ability to do anything about it. That you feel boxed in, locked in, or just shut out from actually making change. Well, that's the case that I heard recently from a chief of staff. Now, when I say chief of staff, I want you to understand that in a lot of organizations, everything flows through the chief of staff. That the chief of staff's job is not just to keep the trains moving, but the chief of staff job is to know everything that's going on inside of the organization and who's in charge, who's involved in it, and try to make some decision-making about how to improve things that are going wrong or to facilitate things to continue to stay well. The chief of staff is thought of as a very powerful position that everybody, wants to be the CEO, right? But there isn't a good CEO that doesn't have a chief of staff. Listen, I've met plenty of chief of staffs. I mean, I'm talking about chiefs of staff at 175-year-old pharmaceutical companies who have changed the world by some of the drugs that they made. The chief of staff in that organization has an incredible amount of power. So I've met chief of staffs at large major organizations, hospital systems, banks, other facilities. I know what a chief of staff does. And I met enough of them to know that many of them feel powerless in the role that they're in. I've met enough of them to know that they are burned out from not having enough power to change things. So what I wanted to do today in this conversation is to lay out a few signs that your burnout is not your problem. Your burnout is not your fault. Let me be clear. It's your problem, and I'm going to help you to address it today. But the burnout is not your fault. See, the burnout is not about your capacity. It's not about your competency. It's not even about your commitment. You were fully committed when you took the job. You were fully committed when you joined the organization. You were fully committed when you signed that offer letter to say that I want to come to you. You were totally committed. You also had the competency to do the job. There's nobody who is more qualified than you to be in the role that you're in. You went to the right school, you had the right mentors, you had the right opportunities, you got the right certifications, and you had the right practical real world experiences to do what you're doing. So this is not about a competency. And you also have capacity, that you exercise regularly, that you work out regularly, you eat right, you're relatively healthy. You have all of the things that you need in order for you to do your job. But here's the problem. Your organization culture is facilitating your burnout. Your organization is contributing to the toxicity that you currently feel in your body. That your sleepless nights is not about your unwillingness to go to bed, but you have a work environment that's making it hard for you to just go to sleep. You do. So here's a few signs that I want to give you. And I'm going to give you 4 things. I'm going to close with 4 things that you need to do right now to mitigate that burnout and to transform the culture. Because burnout culture for leaders is worse than burnout culture for frontline staff. See, I spoke yesterday, or not yesterday, last weekend at a healthcare organization that does incredibly important work. And a lot of their nurse managers are burned out because they got high turnover. They got high staff. Their scope and responsibilities is stressful. But if the chief clinical officer of that organization or the chief operating officer or the CEO or the chief of staff of that organization burns out, it could be catastrophic for their revenues, their margin, and their ability to stay in business. And so sometimes burnout is you, but more times than not, I'm telling you right now, it's the culture. It's the culture of the organization. So let me break down for you some signs that you might be experiencing as a leader that demonstrates that you have a culture problem that is facilitating your burnout. Here's the first sign, that you're under-resourced but overly responsible for things. Could you imagine being a leader who is put in a position of power? You got a big salary, a big title, and a big corner office, and you're being told that all of these things are in your span of control. But when you look at your FTE count, you only got 3 people reporting to you. So you really can't control all of the things that you were told that you were in charge of. That happens more often than not. That people are literally under-resourced and overly responsible for things. And so if you have an organization where you're supposed to be in charge of the entire supply chain, right? Your job is to find efficiencies in the supply chain, but everybody in the supply chain reports up to the CFO, and you just a dotted line to people. You know, the dotted line, I probably should do a whole segment one day about dotted line reports. Like when you hear these people say, you're a dotted line to the CEO. You know what it really means? You don't report to the CEO. That you get some FaceTime with the CEO, but you don't really report to the CEO. So you can't really take your challenges. You're not going to be managed by the CEO. The CEO is not going to be making a decision about you're getting a bonus or not at all. You don't really have a real working relationship with the CEO if you got a dotted line. You only have a working relationship with the person that you got a solid line. Now, it may not feel like that, but I'm telling you right now, if on that organizational chart, you dotted line to anybody, they have no power over you. And if you got dotted lines reporting to you, you have no power over them because they're going to respond to the person who is the solid line. And because of those dotted lines, you're sometimes under-resourced and overly responsible. That's the first sign that you got a cultural problem in your organization that could lead to burnout. Too many people are overly responsible and they're not overly resourced to deal with it. They're under-resourced. Here's the second thing that you might be noticing that would indicate that this is a culture problem leading to your burnout, is that you have unclear expectations about what you're supposed to do. You ever work with a leader who thinks out loud when they talk? And what do I mean think out loud when they talk? That you're in a meeting with them and you're trying to get to a goal or deliverable and the purpose for the meeting. So you're asking concrete questions to try to get concrete answers. But the leader doesn't answer in concrete answers. They answer in thoughts. And their thoughts are run-on thoughts. And so you don't know what you should be doing. Should we be going direction A? Should we be going direction B? Well, she said this and she said that, but she also said this. So you leave out of there confused with unclear expectations. That can drive you insane. That can lead you to burnout. That can lead you to quit on the project, quit on the work, and disengage from the work because you're like, well, I don't know which way she want me to go. I don't know really what she want me to do. I'm trying to make heads or tails of it, but unclear expectations can quickly lead to burnout because you don't know if you're being successful or not. Okay. Now, here's the third thing that might indicate that you have a culture problem in your organization. And that is you have no psychological safety to say what you really think or really feel. That this is an organization where, silence and pushback is not expected and silence is expected. That people want you to just accept what was said. So you know what happens when you don't have psychological safety? You sit in a meeting and you don't speak up. You don't say anything. Instead, you wait to have a meeting after the meeting, or the meeting after the meeting after the meeting. Or you try to figure out, what were we really doing in there? Why you didn't say nothing? Well, I ain't trying to get in front of that train. I've seen this movie before. You can feel free to get in front of that train, but I'm not getting in front. So silence at the senior leadership level or any leadership level means you don't have psychological safety. That if you're a leader in an organization, you should feel empowered to speak the truth and know that the truth doesn't hurt, that the truth heals. But you might have a culture in an organization where nobody is allowed to talk about the emperor that has no clothes. That we all see that the emperor has no clothes, but you better not say anything. If you want to keep working here, you better keep quiet. That's the leadership culture. So if you don't have psychological safety, then that is a problem in your organization. Now, here's another problem that you might be noticing that really is a culture problem, is that you get recognition for doing a good job, but without having the resources to actually do the good job. So you're being given credit for something that you really didn't do. And you know you didn't do it because you don't have the ability to control it. So you just sit there and smile. You take your plaque, you take your trophy, you get your bonus, but you like, I ain't really had nothing to do with that. But because this culture is bad, I'm just going to take my money and I'm going to keep it moving. That's not a good thing, is to be in an organization where you got recognition and no resources. But the reverse is also bad, which is you got the resources to do the job and you doing the job, but you never get recognized for it. That's a bad thing too, is to not be recognized for doing a good job. So either one, recognition and no resources, or resources and no recognition, is very much a bad thing and indicates that your culture is toxic and is leading to leadership burnout. Now, here's another sign that your organization is bad and you might be burning out, is if you live and stay in crisis mode. Crisis mode, like literally that every day there's a fire drill or every day something is on fire. Then when you walk in the door, you literally thinking, what fire am I going to have to put out today? That there's no strategic strategy, no strategy or plan, no strategic framework of how you do your work. You literally walk in, okay, what crisis do I got today? Because you know why that's a bad thing? Because it gets you stuck in the mindset and the mentality that you are a superhero, that your job is to solve problems. Like you wait for the damsel in distress, or you wait for the kid to be, falling off the building. You wait for the plane crash, the helicopter crash, or whatever it is. So you wait for the fire to start so you can run into the burning building and save people. Organizations that live in crisis mode is an organization with a toxic culture. It's not about you. It's not your fault. It's not your problem. If you're in an organization that lives in crisis mode, then I want you to know that that's a problem. That's a problem. That's a cultural problem. It's not your problem. And so if you are always responding to the crisis, if you're always having to jump on something new, or you can't complete what you were working on yesterday because there's a new crisis today, that's going to lead to burnout. It's going to make you want to disengage, make you want to quit, and you sure enough are going to doubt whether you stay in that organization. Now, I got one more that I'm going to cover for you, and I'm going to give you a framework of what you need to do if this is you and this is the organization that you're in right now. The last one is what I call invisible labor. Invisible labor is what I call the Coach Sievers of the world. You may not know who Coach Sievers is. Well, there was this show back in the 80s called The Fall Guy. And it was about the unknown stuntman in the movie industry, which is Clint Eastwood or Tom Cruise, who is the star of the movie. When they get to the edge of the bridge and they're supposed to jump off, Tom Cruise ain't the one really jumping off. It's actually a stuntman that comes in and jumps off the building and make them look good because they know how to fall. They know how to carry it, right? So what am I saying to you? Some of you in the workplace are the Coach Sievers of your organization. You're the unknown stuntman that nobody knows who you are, and you got to do the hard work that everybody is afraid to do. You're the fixer, the fixer. Let me be clear. Let me tell you when I say the fixer, is that your organization probably could have been sued 6 times for racial discrimination, sexual harassment, some other kind of inappropriate thing that is going on in the workplace. 6 times you could have been sued. Your settlements might have been $500,000 or more for each case. But no, you didn't have to go through that. You know why? Because you're the fall guy. You're the fixer. You're the one who got the person to back down and back off, and you gave them a package to go away, and they went away. You're the person who's doing all of this invisible work that nobody sees, nobody gets recognition for, and you can't even tell anybody about it. Because if people knew the NDAs that you made people to sign, if people knew the things that you made go away, if people knew the things that you made disappear, if they knew that, they would look at you differently and question your ethics or your integrity. When you really ain't trying to be unethical or lacking integrity, but you know that with great leadership comes a great responsibility. There are things that you need to do, and sometimes you got to do that your boss makes you to do. Like make sure that this is not a disruptive situation to the organization. You're a fixer. That's the invisible labor. Now, what does all of that do to you? It burns you out. You're mentally, emotionally exhausted from all of those things. Not having enough resources, but all the responsibility. Unclear expectations. Okay. No psychological safety. You got the recognition with no resources, or no resources and getting all of the recognition for stuff you didn't do. Crisis mode. Every day you solving a crisis. That's number 6. And number 7, you are the invisible leader. You're doing things to get things safe and happy and secure in the organization, but you ain't getting no recognition for that because you can't be recognized for that. That's a culture. 7 things that means that your culture is creating the burnout that you're feeling and experiencing right now. So let me give you the 4 things, and I'm closing very quickly. The 4 things that I'm declaring to you that you need to do. I'm declaring to you that these things that you need to understand. The first thing is you need to understand that you are not the problem. The culture is the problem. You are not the problem, but the culture is the problem. The second thing you need to know and you need to do is you need to learn how to say no more. You need to say no to that project. You need to say no to making that situation going away. You need to say no, don't give me the recognition, give my team the recognition, or give Barbara the recognition, Give Sarah the recognition because she's the one who did all of the work on the project. You need to learn how to say no. You got to say no because the more you say yes, the more problematic it is for you. So you got to learn to say no. The third thing you need to learn is you need to learn how to ask for help. You need to learn how to ask for help. So whether that's engaging me to help you in your organization, or whether it is asking for internal help to work on a project, or going to see EAP or a therapist or a peer, asking your CEO for help, whoever it is, you need to ask for help. You need to learn how to ask for help. And asking for help is not a sign of weakness. Asking for help is a sign of strength because you are not a superhero. You didn't grow up on planet Krypton. You didn't grow up on Paradise Island. Your dad is not Howard Stark. He didn't give you all of the superpowers. You didn't get bit by a radioactive spider and you can swing from building to building. You are not a superhero. Stop pretending to be. Learn to ask for help. And here's the last thing that I'm going to share with you, and I'm out. That if you want to understand that your burnout as a leader is not about you, but it's about your organization, you have to know that culture is the problem. You got to learn to say no. You got to ask for help. And finally, and most importantly, you have to be the change that you want to see in the culture. You have to be the change. You have to be the leader that is speaking up about all of the things that you see are going wrong. You got to tell the truth. If you want other people to admit the truth, you got to admit the truth. Those are the things that you need to be doing right now to protect yourself. Because if you don't, this is going to burn you out and you may not be able to recover from it. And I've seen too many leaders, chiefs of staff in significant positions who tell stories about, I used to work at this company and do this. And people can't believe that they used to work there. You? Yeah, I burned out and I had to quit. But it wasn't your fault. It was the culture. That's the problem. So I hope this has been helpful to you. If it has, please subscribe, like, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, because I want leaders to understand that your responsibility is build a world-class workplace culture. You can't do that if you're burned out, and you can't do it if you think the burnout is your fault rather than your organization's fault. My name is Anton Gunn. See you next Wednesday for Leadership Live. Everybody have a fantastic rest of your week. Take care.